Hello, I'm Jason, President and CEO of Complex Community Federal Credit Union, and we're excited to be with you again for another series of Money Saving Mondays. What are Money Saving Mondays? Well, we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. We're going to touch on things like savings, investing, insurance, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, credit reports, a whole wide variety of different topics. But we couldn't do it without the partnership with UTPB. We'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Woodley, Dr. Spurlock, and Diana Ortiz. These ladies, along with the entire UTPB faculty and staff, are focused on you discovering a greater success as you leave to go out to the world. Thanks again, UTPB. Why do we teach financial capabilities? 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 3 out of 4 people. That's a lot of people. What does it mean to live paycheck to paycheck? That means you don't have money to save or invest. You don't have money for food. You might not have peace of mind. You might lose choices or opportunities out there. It adds stress to your life. One of the greatest things you can invest in is your college education and you understanding the financial capabilities. At the end of every session, we're going to have a question and answer period. We'll have our contact slide so you can be able to send us your questions. If we don't touch on your questions in class, send it to us and we'll circle back and answer those questions again in the next session. We're excited. We're ready to run with our Money Saving Mondays.
Hi there, Lisa Wyman with Complex Community. So glad you joined us today. We're going to be talking about finding money for college, including financial aid. So the first thing I'll tell you is we're experts in a lot of things, but you've got some great experts available to you at the local colleges and universities. And I always encourage you to visit with them as you start to dive into what financial aid looks like. We're going to hit some things at a pretty high level, hopefully prompt some questions from you. We look forward to hearing from you on those. So today we're going to discuss, of course, federal student aid, state student aid, institutional aid, which would come from the university you plan to attend, scholarships, and then other sources of money. So some of the questions that we're going to answer: why does it matter to you? Well, you may already be in college, you may be thinking about it, maybe you're going to go back. It matters, trust me, stay with it. What is financial aid? We're going to talk about that. What's my favorite kind of money, which is free money, and what does that mean? Who can get the free money and the financial aid? How much can you get? How do you apply? And then where do you go to get more information? So does all this matter? I'm already in college. Absolutely it matters. Maybe things were great financially when you went into college, but circumstances change, and any change in circumstances could certainly change your eligibility. Maybe you weren't eligible when you first applied, but you need to keep after it. Apply every single year because there may be new pockets of money that are available to you. Most schools do require that you apply annually, and absolutely we would recommend this because, again, change in circumstances, change in the amount of money that the federal government is willing to loan, any number of things could open up an avenue for free money that was not available to you before. You may want to pursue a second degree, or maybe your master's program, or going to some field of a graduate study. The rules are a little different there. Again, you're going to want to visit your financial aid office, get online, fill out the paperwork. Free money, people, it's better than nothing. So what is financial aid? Well, it's money to help you pay for college or career school. So they have financial aid dollars that are available if you want to be a welder, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a chef, if you want to go to a 4-year university, or even for graduate studies. It comes in the form of grants, money that you don't have to pay back, but there might be strings attached. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Work-study programs, loans, and scholarships. We are going to give you throughout the presentation, and at the very end there will be some websites that you can visit. Make sure you visit those for more information on each one of these areas. So let's ask the question, who can get federal student aid? A lot of people think that they're not eligible and they're missing out on those free dollars. So you have to be a U.S. citizen, or a national or an eligible non-citizen. There's some legal mumbo jumbo that goes in there, and if you're curious as to whether or not you qualify, let's get started through the process. You need a high school diploma or equivalent. You need to be following an eligible degree plan or a certification plan in either a college or a career tech school. You have to have a valid social security number. Males have to be registered in the Selective Service, and we've not had anyone called up in years and years and years, but you still have to be registered for Selective Service. You can do that at your local post office. You must have satisfactory academic progress while you're in school. And again, we'll pop up another website for you to visit where you can learn a little bit more about eligibility. So who can get other kinds of financial aid? Well, states, colleges, private universities, all of these places have scholarships. They have money available for kids to come to school at their university. Their eligibility criteria is going to be different from location to location. So as you're looking for that university that you want to go to, you need to look to make sure you're finding the right school for you that has the culture that's going to help you to be successful. But you also want to know what kind of private funds do they have that might be available to you to help pay to go to school there. So another great question that we often get asked is, how much federal student aid can you get? Well, it depends on your financial need. So financial need is determined by this huge long calculation, and you can get into the nuts and bolts of that as you're going through that financial student aid process. But it has to do with what the government says your family should be contributing towards your education, and then what is the actual cost of that education going to be. And they take the cost of the education, they subtract out what they think your family should be providing, and then that's what your financial need would be. So very simplistic way of looking at it. It's certainly more complicated than that as you get into the nuts and bolts. How much can you get? So there are several different federal student aid programs. One is called Pell Grant. So for the 2020-2021 school year, Pell Grants were capped at a little over $6,000. There are federal work-study programs, and so all of the money that you can receive from that is really dependent upon the school that you're going to be working for. So a work-study is, I'm going to UTPB, I'm employed by UTPB. And so how much money you can get through that program is determined by UTPB and the funds that they have available. There are also direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Those generally run about $5,500 a year for this school year. And then there are direct plus loans for parents that they can apply for as well. So there's a great place to go. It's called a FAFSA forecaster, and it helps you to determine how much federal aid you might be eligible for, and we'll flash that up on the screen for you. So how much state, school, and private scholarship money can you get? Well, I think the world is your oyster there. There are some maximums for state aid. And so let's say you're going to OC and you're looking for Texas Public Education grants, your max will be $6,000 there. The state tuition grant, maximum of $6,000 there. There's another grant that's called the TEAS, the Toward Excellence Access and Success Grant, $5,000 max there. But a lot of schools and private scholarship money, there's no limit. Some scholarship money may say, well, if you received any other assistance, we're not going to help you. Others don't care. So you really should be looking for aid everywhere that you can find it and gather as many dollars into that bucket to help you to pay for school. How do you apply for aid? Pretty simple. You go to the FAFSA website, we'll pop that up here. And then for state aid, there's another website. We'll pop it up here as well. But also at the end of the presentation, we'll have all of these different websites available for you. So let's talk about minimizing student loan debt. The number one way to do that is maximize every other funding source. One of the ways to do that is to, through grants and scholarships, get all the free money that you can. Is there a work program? Maybe there's a side hustle. I need to get a part-time job. Look for organizations that provide tuition assistance. So for example, here at the credit union, we provide tuition reimbursement. Starbucks, UPS, Home Depot, Target, all of these companies offer some type of tuition assistance. And then I think another thing to look at is there a monthly payment plan through your university? So let's say this semester costs X number of dollars. Can I break that up into payments over the months of that semester in order to prevent me from having to come up with a giant chunk of money right at the beginning? Couple other ways, these are getting more creative. Limit your living expenses. Eat in, not out. Have a roommate. A lot of times that can help. Learn to live lean and mean now so you can live larger later. So when we start looking at student loan debt, how do we keep that at a bare minimum? Borrow only what you need. The more you borrow, the longer it's going to take you to pay it off after you leave college. You're going to be burdened with that. And to decline any excess loans. I've got a million stories of members of the credit union, friends of mine, young people that I know that have just loaded up on student loan debt and come to find out they're going to Cabo for spring break and they're buying a flat screen TV because they had extra dollars. Those loan dollars are not extra dollars. They're dollars you're going to have to pay back at some point in time. So really keep your borrowing to an absolute minimum. Living lean and mean right now. And then understand the payment process. So what are the repayment terms? When does interest start on those loans? Can you ask for loan forgiveness in some circumstances? All of those things. Make sure you really understand what you're getting into before you sign on the dotted line for that loan. You also should evaluate different loan options. So exhaust the federal loan programs before going private. Just a much better option on the federal loan side. And then look for fixed interest rates. You don't want interest rates to float, because if the interest rates float up over time, you're paying more and more in interest for those loans. Remember that some loans are subsidized, where the government pays the interest on the loans while you're still in school or while you're in deferment on that loan. So subsidized loans are a good way to go. And then look for programs that provide loan forgiveness. So for example, if you want to be a teacher and you're willing to teach in a highly underserved district, then many times your student loans can be forgiven. Other things to consider. So what are the benefits of private student loans? We talked about the federal kind of being the first bucket you need to look at. But sometimes when you're doing a private student loan, you can qualify for a higher borrowing limit. And you may need that, especially if you're going on to grad school or if you're going to a top tier school and it takes a lot of money to do that. You may qualify for a lower interest rate if you have excellent credit. And we've talked about credit and lending in another one of our sessions, but colorful credit, bad credit is what some people call it, will cost you even in the student loan arena. And loans are not based on need, and many times federal loans are. And so that's something to consider. But here are the cautionary tales around private student loans. They generally have a variable interest rate. So remember, we said you need to look for that lower interest rate, hope that you qualify for it, but it may be variable in that it changes over time and it can increase over time. None of them are subsidized. Interest starts the day you take the loan, and you're not even making any money. You're still in class, and that interest is racking up over time. There's no loan forgiveness. The repayment schedule can be less flexible, and some require payments while you're still in school. So where do you get more information? Right after this, we're going to have a giant billboard. We'll leave it up for a little bit so that you can look at all of the different resources that are available. I think the easiest one to remember is just studentaid.gov. You can find a tremendous amount of information there. And then also walk down to the financial aid department at your college or university. There'll be a tremendous help there. They have all kinds of resources, very well versed in the financial aid world. Good luck to you, and hope to see you next time. So we've been talking about student financial aid. I've asked Madison Hankins, who's our financial capability director here at the credit union, to join us today. Going to ask you a few questions.
Sounds good.
Ready to roll?
Yes, ma'am.
They're hard.
Okay, I'm ready. I
love
studied.
it. I love it. So I've just graduated, or I'm getting close to graduating. I'm trying to do some planning. What's the best way to pay off my student loans?
Well, number one, the best way would be to exhaust all your options of free money before you take those student loans. But sometimes those student loans are what makes it possible for us to go to school. So make sure that you really understand the terms of those loans and pay the ones that have the highest interest rate off first. And then when you're paying off all of them, as you pay one off, roll the money that you were paying on the one you've now paid off into some of the ones that you still have left, so that you're paying a little bit more on the principal, and hopefully paying off the loan before the term is up, and therefore paying less in interest. So be really strategic about how you pay those loans off.
Okay, so Dave Ramsey, I think, calls that the snowball, the debt snowball. So the same kind of thing. You can use that for student loans. I like that a lot. Okay, so the next one is, if I'm struggling financially, is it better to take a semester off of school, work and save some money, and then go back, or is it better to take that student loan?
Y'all, life happens, and sometimes our situations change, but I would encourage you to do whatever it takes to go on and finish that education. Take out that loan and then work on paying it off after, because again, life happens, and sometimes when we take breaks from school, life gets in the way, and then we have trouble finding time to go back. So set the number one thing that no one could ever take away from you is your education. So value that and put that first. And then make sure that you're living lean and mean. If you're having to take those loans out, don't take more money than you have to, and be really smart with your money when you're having to do it, so that it's not such of a burden to pay back later. But that number one priority needs to be your education.
Okay,
absolutely.
That's a good answer. So you kind of touched on this. I just want to circle back because I think it's such an important point. What if you do get more money than you need? It's like, oh, you qualified for another loan. Here's $5,000. Should I take the $5,000? What should I do with it?
Well, y'all, that happens more than you realize. A lot of my friends, when I was in school, would get more money or qualify for more money than they needed. And unfortunately, I saw my friends take that extra money and spend it on things like spring break or the Christmas tree in the freshman dorm room, eating out for fancy dinners and those things. And that seemed great in the moment, but those friends of mine are still paying on their student loans. And that trip is just barely a memory, and the dinner doesn't matter at all, and the Christmas tree is broken. So if you get more money than you need to pay for school, put that money back on the loan or don't take it. Again, this money is if it's student loan money, you have to pay it back, and you have to pay it back with interest, which is more money on top of what you took out in the first place. So be really responsible with that money so that it's not a burden later.
Yeah, exactly. It seems all fun now, but you graduate and you're saddled with all of this debt, and you've not even really started that next season of your life yet. So yeah,
absolutely.
Good. That's good advice. So let's talk about how much debt people are graduating with, because the numbers are a little scary to me.
Yeah, so for public universities, 58% of students graduate with student loan debt. 78% of students who do have debt, it is under $30,000, the average being about $16,000. But that's $16,000 that you're having to pay back in the next year. So it's really important to exhaust your free money options first. work out payment plans with the university, and then really be smart and do your research before you take those loans out so that you really know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we understand that you need to take student loans. Many of you do, and we understand that because your education's the most important thing you're doing right now. That's the journey that you're on, and you want to make it to the other side. But the cautionary tale is free money, free money, free money. And if you do need to take a loan, that you fully understand all of the parameters of the loan, and you're not taking any more debt than you need to. That 16,000 and some change you talked about, that's also earning interest. So it's a whole lot more than 16 by the time you graduate, and then by the time you get it paid off, it's just a tremendous amount of money. And I know it won't buy a fancy car, but it could buy a car, right? So think about those free money options. Think about very carefully understanding all of the loan terms, and train yourself up. Go to the experts. Find someone that really knows their business at your local university or college, and rely on them to help you walk through this process. Thanks for being here today, Madison. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll see you next time.